it never hurts to throw a little bit something different in the mix of what you try to show them, because I've been shocked sometimes, like I have to have this. That's not even the house they end up buying.
Right.
They find we look at another one and they're like, oh, I really like this one better.
Yeah.
Which, kind of blows your mind after all that time you spent trying to find the perfect match.
Okay, so that's a really good point. Why do you think that sometimes there's that disconnect between what they say and what we show them?
Not being familiar with the prices in the market, or...
Okay, misunderstanding of the market. All right.
And actually seeing it visually and walking through it.
The difference
sometimes
between
makes
pictures and reality.
Yes, absolutely. Sometimes that's a huge difference. They're like, oh, this didn't look this nice in the pictures.
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah, see, we needed to look at it. So,
Yeah.
and people will say, I have to have a pool. Well, you spend half your life looking for pool homes, which is rare, and then you find a couple that have everything but the pool, a big enough backyard to add a pool. That's the one they buy.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, okay, well, maybe we'll add one later, or maybe we won't, but all of a sudden this house is the one.
Right.
So it's funny how they change their minds like that.
So, Rhonda said buyers are liars, and it's not that they're lying. They are. But anyway, it's not that they're intentionally lying. Here's the problem. It's our fault. It's truly our fault. Because we do this every day. We're in MLS looking at properties. We're in MLS seeing what the opportunities for properties are. We're thinking about how this listing can be used for this person, or this listing can be used for this person. But we forget, and that's why we're doing this, is we forget to sit down with the buyers, reel them in, and slow the roll. Because we also forget to ask the why questions. The challenge with a buyer is the challenge with the seller is too, but we'll focus on the buyers. The challenge with the buyers is they don't know. They don't know what they don't know. If they did this a year ago, the market is completely different, to your point about understanding the market differentials. If they did it 3 years ago, it's completely different. The forms are different, the types of property are different, the pricing is different. If they did it 20 years ago, forget about it. I mean, they probably wrote a 6-page offer at that point, right? And now we're up to 12. So it's different. It's different for them. And for investors, it's still different for them. If they bought a house last week and they're buying another one next week, it's still different for them because the property is different, the conditions are different, the motivation of the seller is different, and now we're going to be getting into a lot of investor-to-investor purchases, which their mindsets are going to be very different. So the point is that until we start asking the why questions, when buyers tell us, oh, I want a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom. I mean, I had a customer call and was very upset with one of our agents and said, I don't understand. They're not taking us to what we want to see. We are only going to 2-story homes, and we told them from the beginning we only want a 1-story home. And it was a good agent. So it wasn't that I felt like the agent was doing something wrong. It's a good agent. So I said, okay, let me see what I can do to get to the bottom of this. And I went to the agent and I said, hey, I just got a call from one of your customers and tell me how it's going with them. Oh, we've been seeing a few properties. They really don't like anything that we've been showing. I wish I could show them a little bit more what they want. Oh, okay, so what do you mean? Well, and we didn't get to the 2-story right away, but he started talking about, the type of home and what the area was. And he said, they're really refined on the geography that they want to live in. I said, okay, I understand. So they mentioned something about 2-story versus 1-story. Have you guys talked about that at all? And he said, yeah. He said they really just want a 1-story home, but they keep asking to go see properties, and the properties they want to go see, or in the area that they want to go see, there are only 2 stories available right now. So I've been taking them so we could stay connected and that we could kind of maybe find other opportunities, or like Rhonda mentioned, see if they'd be open to a 2-story once they realize that what they're looking for is kind of a unicorn in this area. I said, okay, I get it. I said, have you taken them outside of the geography that they're interested in? Well, no, because they're very strict on the geography. Could you potentially take them out of the geography under the auspices of, I'd like for you to see some single-story homes that I know you're interested in outside of your area so I can better understand the features that interest you so that when they become available in your primary market area, I'm more aware. So can you use it as a learning experience for the 2 of you? And he went, I really hadn't thought about that, but yeah, I guess we could go outside of the area, but I didn't want to piss him off by going outside of the area. I said, well, unfortunately, you already pissed him off. Because they're a little upset that you're only taking them to 2-story. Have you explained to them? So, long and short of the story is that it wasn't that he was wrong, it was that we weren't communicating well. We never asked the question, why is 1 story important to you? We never asked the question, if we could find these features in a 2-story, would you be willing to? We never asked the question on, I get that you're looking in this area currently, or we never said, I get that you're looking in this area, but right now, that doesn't exist in this area. If we're on a time constraint, would you be willing to go 3 blocks out or half a mile out? So we didn't do our job well. We did our job, but a lot of what we kept was in here. I mean, it's the same thing about, we're getting an influx of people outside of Florida coming into Jacksonville, right? Well, what do you think a large yard is to somebody who's coming from New York City? I mean, it might be the size of this table would be a large yard, right?
They're excited.
Yeah.
Right. Wow, look at all this yard.
Right.
Yeah.
But they say large yard, and you start taking them to corner lots where they've got, an hour to mow, and they freak out. Mm-hmm. Yet somebody moving in from Egypt, where I live right now, they're used to 3 and 4 acres. So you take them to a townhome with a yard this size, they're not going to be happy. Mm-hmm. So I think we need to be asking the questions. I think we need to slow the roll. And I think especially in this market when buyers are so anxious to get out and to see properties, it's very difficult to slow the roll. Because look, that house isn't going to be, don't talk to me about sitting and chatting. That house isn't going to be on the market for 15 minutes. I want to go see it now. Mm-hmm. So, but there's ways to incorporate it. Great, let's go see it, let's talk about it, and then let's take another half an hour and sit and chat for a few minutes. I tell agents, probably high expectation, you should never show more than 1 property or 2 properties to a buyer that you haven't already done your consult with. And you should never not do a consult no matter how well you know the buyer. So just like when I say whatever your practices and policies are for your business as you expand that, it has to be applicable to everybody in your business. You also need to set those same policies for buyers. Think of all the things that can go wrong. You're gonna have listings, and even though listings are tough right now, did you notice we're over 3,000 in listings?
Yes, I did.
That's 1,000 more.
That's insane.
So usually what we were seeing was, and I don't know if you've had a chance to watch the inventory at all, but 3 weeks ago, Monday, 1,800 listings. Thursday, 2,200 listings. This past week, Wednesday, 3,100 listings.
I saw that. I just thought it must be
I didn't check
wrong.
this morning to see what they are. So that's telling us the market's shifting. And if you look, you'll even see days on the market is increasing. Days on the market
I
is.
did see
days on
that,
the
and
market
you know
are.
what else I'm getting because I have all 3 different zip codes that I'm seeing price reductions.
Absolutely.
Not much,
Right. No,
But-
I've seen it for sure.
a little bit. So
And what Rhonda is talking about, which I think is really important as we start to learn the market and learn what MLS can do to help us, she sets herself up with what's called hot sheets. And the hot sheets can be customized for a market area, can be customized by other statistics or features. And she gets a report every morning that shows her what's new on the market, what's come off of the market, what's gone under contract, what's withdrawn, what's expired. a lot of those different status options that we looked at yesterday. And it's, as you watch that daily, you start to see shifts. And it's interesting, people listing agents are getting anxious and not preparing their customer for the market. It's shifting. Anyway, that includes buyers, preparing them for the market. So this is why we think that the buyer consult is so important. It's really important to sit down. And what Rhonda talked about this morning, before you got here, was that there's a new rule through National Association of Realtors that any front-facing site must contain buyer compensation. So when I started, and Rhonda has done this many years, but I'm much older. So when I started, there were a lot of private fields. Commission and compensation were not something that you marketed or advertised, right? The compensation was decided between the brokerage and the seller. The co-op was decided between the brokerage and the seller. It wasn't the buyer's agent's opportunity to adjust that or insert themselves into the relationship with the seller and the brokerage. Now, as independent contractors, as business people, if we are going to show a property and we think that the compensation that's being offered is below standard or above standard, we can call prior to showing the property to potentially negotiate the commission. That's not to say that the other side has to, and that's not to say that the other side won't, but if we are going to show a property to our buyer and we feel the compensation is not commensurate with the market, we do have the right to call and offer or to ask if the seller would consider increasing the compensation to the buyer side. The other thing that we'll talk about today that has also come into play when it comes to compensation is when a seller and a brokerage get together, there's a listing agreement that says how we're going to act. When a buyer and an agent get together, it's like the wild, wild west. There was nothing until about 5 years ago, that ever said anything about what the responsibility of the agent was to the buyer. The only thing that ever dictated that was the description of the type of brokerage that was being offered or utilized, which is transaction or single agency. Now there's a buyer brokerage agreement that we can give to our buyers that says, here are my responsibilities to you, here are your responsibilities to me, and by the way, as a professional, my fee is X. If what's being offered is less than X by the seller, you, Mr. and Ms. Buyer, agree to pay the difference. Or I can choose to accept what's being offered and not charge you anything. So it at least puts you in the position, I believe, in a stronger position with a buyer to say, I'm a professional. This is my standard. I don't go beyond my standard. Now, when I'm offered a payment, if I believe that that's commensurate with the market or the property, then I might be willing to take that, which may be slightly below what my standard is, in working with you. If I don't, or if I'm concerned about it, I will express it to you and talk to you about compensating the difference. But I believe it sets a standard. But I think we're going to run into issues as it relates to FTC issues.
Do we have that form?
Oh yeah.
I haven't seen an app, guys. I've been kind of watching for one.
It should be.
Is it under that multiple?
It should be, but we'll check today, and if it's not there, or go in and
I mean, I'm in here. Only one I see is just, I do see the buyer questionnaire, but is there a buyer agency agreement?
Yeah, it should be called exclusive buyer representation. Type in exclusive and see if you would see a NEFAR form that says exclusive buyer.
Oh, I was looking under ours, so maybe that's the problem. Exclusive buyer brokerage agreement. Okay. Good.
Cool.
Yay, that's an icebreaker.
But we'll go over that too, so you can kind of get familiar with that.
Oh, good.
Anyway, so the bottom line is we think it's important to be able to talk to a buyer about how this process is going to work. And our buyers tell us, they already tell us, look, I'm concerned about the process and the paperwork. I need someone who helped me with the process and the paperwork. So why not start at the very beginning and telling them how this is going to flow, right? Start at the very beginning. So as we do that, I just wanted to talk about a few different things. We'll talk about the steps in the sales process, just to better understand, make sure that we're clear on what those steps are. We'll talk about prospecting for buyers. There are a variety of different ways to prospect for buyers. How are you doing it? Where are you finding your buyers? Are your networks referral networks based? How is that coming together? We'll talk about the buyer consultation itself. We've put together a presentation on PowerPoint that can be printed out in PDF or can be converted to a keynote presentation, so Mac or PC or PDF, whatever you want. It's only about 11 slides long, and I'm a realist. You will probably never give it to your buyers. I understand that. But if I can get you to even just print off one of the pages that summarizes the process and use it as a reminder to take your customer through the steps, I'll feel like we've rocked it. There's one page I really like that I think can facilitate the conversation and allow you to really demonstrate your understanding of the process and your knowledge of how everything comes together. So I get that. I do want to talk about showing tours. I believe that agents go out showing property and don't have a plan. I don't care whether you're showing one property, 2 properties, or 7 properties. You should have a plan. And your customer should know that you took the time to create a plan. So rather than printing out 6 different profile sheets from MLS, randomly putting them in some sort of an order and then sticking a map on top that they're not in the same order, setting up a showing tour, and it really does only take about 10 minutes. Have you done one?
Yes, I try to. It seems to just make everything a little less stressful.
Yeah.
When you know where you're supposed to be and you have it all entered already in your whatever map software you use, on your phone or car or whatever. But
do you use Showing Cart?
I've tried it before, but I have so much better luck using maps. I get my list. I mean, these days I haven't shown more than 4 houses probably at one time in years because there's just not that many to go look at. But and then I look at the map and then I do them that way. But I would love to know, really how to do that.
What would you recommend?
Excuse me?
What did you ask her? What you used?
Showing Cart.
Showing Cart.
Yes.
And that comes with Showing Time.
Yes.
Which is an application.
I would like to know how to use it. I know it's a great tool. I hear wonderful things.
What we'll do is
about
we'll
it.
step through the steps and see if maybe we can assist you in some way to make your life a little easier, or see how we can. What I love about Showing Time what I love about this connection with Showing Time is I put it all together in MLS and then I shoot it over to Showing Time. And when it goes over to Showing Time, I just set the times for my appointments and I can request all of my appointments at one time.
Really?
And when the appointments are confirmed, I push a button and it sends my customer the electronic showing so that when they pull it up on their phone, it opens in their maps and it takes them from place to place. So if we're not in the same car, I know we're going to end up at the same place, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
So
how often do the clients join you in your car? I've never done that before.
You really have to you're going to have to make decisions on that.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I used to always take people in my car. I think you have to be aware of times. I think you have to be aware of safety. Again, whatever you decide needs to be consistent in your processes. So if you say, if it's one person, I will always take them in my car. If it's more than one person, I will never take them in my car. That's an absolute, doesn't have to be, use what you think is right. Oftentimes, if I had families with children, I would say it's probably best if we take 2 cars. I think your children will be more comfortable in your car than in my car. Because I didn't have seats, or have enough seats. Yeah. Whenever I showed property, if it was more than one property, I always had a cooler with water and snacks.
Yeah, me too. And even if they don't, use it or want it. That's it just, again, you know, they're like, wow.
Now, I had people who were being relocated. I had one woman who came in and she had 2 kids with her, and we used my car because she didn't have a car. But I got coloring books and crayons and everything to make sure that, and things that squeaked. I'm like,
No,
take it all. Take it all.
Yeah.
Anyway. But you kind of have to make those determinations and based on situation, but make sure your policies are broad enough to allow you some flexibility where if someone were to question, and whatever we say here stays here. I know that we're recording, but please note that I'm not attempting to be offensive, but you have to make sure and be aware of all fair housing guidelines. You don't ever want someone to say, you took her because she's a white female in your car, you didn't take me because I'm a male. You don't ever want any fair housing issues. So just have your policies consistent and clear enough that everyone believes and feels. That's the thing. They have to feel that they're being treated fairly. And feeling, I mean, I think we all can agree, I might feel very differently about something that you feel about, but that doesn't mean that we're not both in the right space, right?
And
we just have to make
consistency.
right.
You know, just
Even a better word. Let's go with
I just
consistency.
try to be very consistent, and I consistently don't put anybody in my car.
Okay, so I was wondering if that was like
Yeah.
an expectation.
I mean, like he said, there's different circumstances. If someone is from out of town over the years, I would meet them at a hotel, and it was kind of fake, but I would actually take a photo. I mean, it wasn't too fake, but I'd take a picture of their driver's license as if to double check, you know, who they are.
Yeah.
Really, I was just wanting them to know. I'm not just taking total strangers around in my car.
Right.
But they had to be from out of town, and otherwise, and I've never had anyone in the last 3 or 4 years anyway have a problem with that. They really don't want to ride with them. They get in their car and then they
want
talk
to
about
talk
the
about
house
things,
you just
yes.
looked at, and it's a good time to ask those questions. And I used to do a lot of that too, and you kind of get to know them a little bit better. But at the same time, all of a sudden, it seems like 4 or 5 years ago, nobody wanted to ride with you anymore. I didn't take it personally. My nice car, you know. But I did have a young couple tell me one time. They said, in fact, they had just fired their realtor. And look, I was like, la 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 la, because they said, oh, we told her we're not working with you anymore. They said she had a really old car and it stunk. So they decided they were not going to ride with her ever again. And they said, do you mind if we don't ride with you? And I said, I don't mind at all. I said, but my car doesn't stink.
Right.
And they said, okay, well, we're not. We would just rather ride in our own car, okay? I said, perfect. Let's do it. They were in their 30s, you know, cute as all get out. But anyway, I guess everybody's different. But ever since then, with the exception of one couple that came in from California, no one has ridden in my car. And like Clark said, especially with kids. And I've got 12 grandkids, so I probably could have hustled up a car seat, but I'm just not gonna take that liability. I just, you know, would worry about if I had an accident, you know, oh Lord.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's just my 2 cents for what it's
There
worth. 2 cents. Sorry.
No,
that's perfect.
Sorry.
It's perfect. Perfect. Anyway, and not that you don't already know this, but I just wanted to review some of the steps in the sales process. Our sales process really starts with prospecting. If you're not allotting prospecting time every single day or planning for it every single day, you're doing your business a disservice. You need to be out there talking to people, engaging with people. Prospecting leads to the appointments lead to the contracts, listing or buyer. It's also, prospecting is a great time to be able to differentiate between your customers. Are they very active in the market? Are they moderate? Are they, down the road 2 years? Is this someone who gives me a lot of referrals, or is this someone who I would like to get more referrals from? Is this a company or an industry? So part of what Rhonda and I were talking about earlier is when NAR established that, and please note, the majority of the rules that are established by National Association of Realtors, Florida Association of Realtors, and Northeast Florida Association of Realtors, any rules that come up are most likely initiated because of one or two bad apples. Not because all of you are inaccurate, or not because you're doing something that shouldn't be done. They're usually because of one or two bad apples. So, I don't know who that was. I don't know where they went. Anyway, so what National Association of Realtors has said is, you know, you guys, you're misleading the consumer. And that's what the primary objective is in most of our associations and affiliations, is how is the consumer treated and what does the consumer see versus what the consumer believes. So a lot of agents were saying, use me, I'm free. Free services when you buy your house. Free, free, free. What's that commercial? Free, 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 free. I don't remember who it is, but anyway, free, free, free. Which is misleading. It's trying to create a value proposition in a competitive environment that's not accurate. Because if you get compensated, it wasn't free. They may not be paying you, but someone is.
Right.
So it's not free. Unless 100% of your pay goes to a nonprofit organization, it is not free. So, National Association of Realtors got enough complaints from consumers and other realtors and said, so here's the deal. Any front-facing website must identify the buyer compensation. And so, of course, Rhonda knew this was coming. Everybody knew it was going to be there. But maybe we didn't do a good enough job to share with everyone, hey, this was our deadline, so it's there now. So she received a report the other day that's a copy of a report that one of her customers got, and there in bold under features was the compensation. And rightfully so, that kind of caught her off guard. Because one, she probably wasn't expecting him. I'm talking like you're not sitting there. But would that be accurate?
Yes, very. I was really caught off guard. I'm pretty fortunate. I work just a little handful of buyers right now. I guess that's fortunate for me because that's about all I can handle. But they know I get paid. Everybody knows you get paid, especially when But in the past, it's been closer to closing time, like a settlement statement or whatever. So they know, and I have had people, do this because they forget, especially if it's a seller, they forget their listing agreement 2 months ago and what it said and how much they're going to have to pay. I had them go, ooh, at the closing table, but they know, they know. But now, under features, the first thing you see on that report that my guys are getting is, it's kind of funny the way it's worded though. I should have printed one out or something and brought it with me because a lot of them aren't even going to pay a bit of attention to that because it doesn't, the way it's kind of coded, like transact, TRANS, it's not, it doesn't just say realtor commission.
Right.
It doesn't say that. It says transaction broker commission, whatever, it's on
Single agent,
and all of that. So, it's funny. It just caught me off guard. I just thought maybe they would have, and maybe it was in the Facebook group. I don't go in there a lot of the multiple listing MLS Facebook. Maybe they said something in there, hey guys, get ready. So I called a couple of realtors in different companies and they were all like, what? I said, you better go look at your reports you're sending out. Because a lot of people set up, auto reports. Subscriptions, to go out to their customers so that, and then you get notified when they look at it. And so that's what happened. I got a notification that my guy in DC looked at his listing. I thought, oh great, yeah, he's active again, because he's been real quiet. And so he looked, and so I went and looked at it, and I was like, it must just be because I normally look at the private version. So I also have my husband set up to get our neighborhood updates, and I said, did you get anything on the listing that went under contract down the street, and he said, yeah. And I said, let me see what your phone shows. First thing on there, features and the commissions and all.
So before that was never displayed. And
Correct.
Now it does.
It was on the private version. We knew, agents knew, but
Interesting.
not the public.
So, but this gives us a couple of other great opportunities. One is if we're working with a buyer, the buyer knows that we're getting paid, and the buyer knows what we're getting paid. It's better to have it up
Yeah,
front.
I agree. I mean, it's just, you know, what do they say? Bite the head off of the frog or
Yeah.
whatever it is. Just
Eat the elephant one bite
get
at a
it
time, or
Just
whatever
get
it is.
it over with.
So, you know, if we look at it as a threat, then it will be.
Mm-hmm.
If we look at it as an opportunity, then it can be. So it can be an opportunity to talk to our customers about one, the fact that we do get compensated. Two, our customers will start to see the varying compensation that exists, and this will support us presenting the buyer agency agreement and why we want to have consistency in pay as a professional. So it supports us talking to them or having that frank discussion about your commitment to me and my commitment to you as a realtor and a buyer. Because until recent years, there hasn't been anything other than the definition of single agency versus transaction brokerage. And single agency versus transaction brokerage, we're one of only 8 states in the US that still has single agency versus transaction brokerage and does not have dual agency. So dual agency means that an individual, a realtor, can be a fiduciary both as the buyer's associate and the seller's associate. That's not allowable in our state currently. So it brings up, and you guys, we are our own worst enemies. Consistently, we are our own worst enemies. When I first started, you had to, and this is a sidebar, I'm sorry, but this is a sidebar. We do have a class on called Would You Rather Be Single? And it's discusses single agency versus transaction brokerage and the best way to approach the discussion. Because in our market, there are probably 3 or 4, possibly a few more, brokerages that profess to be single agents. They're not, just so we're clear, they're not.
I've always wondered about that. If they were true
They're not.
single agent.
They're not, because they have the customer sign the transition to transaction brokerage at the same time they haven't signed the single agency agreement.
Wow.
So therefore, you can't be, and they say, oh, well, this is only if I need it. Well, once you've signed it, you signed it. You can't go back. The transition form is not specific to a property. It's not specific to a date other than signature. So there is nothing specific about the transition form other than I'm electing to transition. I mean, certain surgeries you can't go bawards on.
Right. That's
Just
true.
saying.
That's true.
That would be the type of relationship you can't go backwards on.
Yeah.
Because it's fiduciary. Anyway, the point is, what we learn and what we do each time gives us an opportunity. The opportunity to discuss commission, if our buyers acknowledge it or see it or start to talk about it, is to talk about our agency agreement and why we have a relationship and what our relationship means to each of us. Because buyers tend to go rogue more than sellers. Why? Because buyers just flit and flutter and flit and flutter and flit and flutter. The other thing that they do is, the other thing that happens is we'll talk about what the buyer expects. And then if we don't tell them that we provide the solution to those, they think you're not providing it for whatever reason, so they're gonna go to her. So the loyalty level is our fault because we don't tell the customer. Why? Again, because we don't know the right questions to ask, they don't know the right questions to ask, and we don't ask the why. So it becomes pretty straightforward. But in the prospecting element, not only are we qualifying our customers, the potential for a buyer, the potential for a seller, we're also giving ourselves the opportunity during prospecting to connect with a potential customer and demonstrate our ability to understand not only the market, but the industry and the process. Because we know buyers and sellers are scared of the process.
Mm-hmm.
Don't use the word scared in front of them. They're gonna say no. But it's foreign. Think about it. It's just foreign. So Qualifying. We go from prospecting to qualifying, so we start to talk to these people. One of the next things that we need to look at is, where are they in their spectrum of buying or selling? What place are they at? How can we talk to them in their place? How can we help them make a decision to go forward or to stay where they are, right? So, and then what we're doing is showing property. So if we don't have a process for showing property, then it always looks disjointed, right? Just because we set an appointment and go to a house and show the house, what's our process when we go to the house? And when I say that, I'm looking at it from not only the process of the experience the customer has, let's look at it from one other perspective. What's your process to ensure your safety? Safety is huge. Are you parking in a driveway and allowing someone to pull behind you so you can't get out if need be? Are you walking into a house first, into a small corridor that doesn't have a lot of access out? How are you managing the process of showing the property? So it's not only showing it as an experience, showing it from your safety, and then showing it from organization. So do you and your customer go separate ways when you go into a house so that you can then come back, talk, go the opposite ways, and then come back and talk? Or are you going with your customer? Does someone really need for you to open a door and say, and here's a bathroom, when you open the door and see a toilet, right? So what's the role we play? How do we help our customers feel comfortable? So what's the showing? How does the showing work? Are you using tools to help you? Can we help you with tools that may shorten the time that you're currently spending putting showings together? How are you organizing your showings? Does it make sense? You know, you find you have listings sometimes, and you'll have an agent who books a showing from 10 in the morning to 4 in the afternoon. It's like, really? Are you serious? I mean, think about that. Think about, you have to respect not only the property, but the person, the seller. I mean, you're asking them to be out for 6 hours when you may just show up at whatever time you show up at.
Mm-hmm.
On vacant houses, that may be different, but I still think you have to respect the property, even on a vacant property. And respect other realtors, too.
Sure. I have a question. So if you
Yeah.
set a 30-minute time slot and you get there, I don't know, 20 minutes early, do you have the right to enter? Or if it's vacant, or what is the process?
There's something called Pathways to Professionalism, which is part of the Code of Ethics course. I need to add that to this. Thanks for making me think about that. So Pathways to Professionalism talks about what a professional does.
Mm-hmm.
So arriving early is not uncommon. Your appointment is from 3 to 3:30. You arrive at 2:45. Can you go in? You need to look around and see who else is there. But many times the sellers, if there's one appointment, don't leave the house until 5 minutes before. So I would always recommend that if you're arriving early, or if you arrive early, reach out to the listing associate and says, we've arrived a little, and let them know that you've arrived a little early. Would it be convenient for us to start our showing now? It shows respect for the seller, it shows respect for the property, and it shows respect for the other agent, and it's respect for your customer too. This goes along with if you've set an appointment and you pull up to the house and your buyer goes, ain't no way. Mr. and Ms. Buyer, we've made an appointment. For no other reason, let's go in to determine if there are features in this home that you want to make sure I'm aware of in future homes that we see, or features that you know right away when you see you don't want. We just need to get the information. Why? I get that this is a process of elimination, and we're going to eliminate this home, but I need to make sure I'm constantly learning and staying in touch with what your desires are, because I know they may change.
And it does happen where you pull up and they're just like, nope, nope. And like Clark said, so much of it is disrespect and just common sense. I told them, I said, I'd like to get you to walk through the house and let me access the code so the agent will know that we showed up on time.
Mm-hmm.
And I know this is not ideal, but let's do a quick walkthrough, see if there's any takeaways from it, and then we're out. So, you take 10 minutes, if that.
Right.
Sometimes it's not even 10 minutes, but
Mhm.
you've gone in, the agent knows you showed up on
Mhm.
time, and you showed it.
Right.
And what does that enhance?
I think your credibility with
And your
with your
reputation.
buyer and your with that agent. You're right. That's a mutual respect then to just. I've called agents when we're only running 10 minutes late
Mhm.
Same.
and said, "Hey, I'm so sorry. Can you let your seller know, especially if I know it's occupied, that we're going to be about 10 minutes late. I can just tell because we're stuck in traffic or whatever."
Mhm.
And they're like, "Oh, that's so nice of you to call." They're so shocked, like,
Mhm.
"What?" And I'm
Right.
like, "Yeah, well, I just wanted you to let your seller know that they don't have to leave for a little while." And she said, "Well, to be honest with you, they're gone for the day anyway, or whatever,
Sure.
Right.
So, but just common sense respect,
Mhm.
and they remember that,
Right.
know. And you may have a deal with them 2 months later, and they'll be like, "Yeah, I remember her.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was so nice. Let's accommodate her buyers and get them in quickly or whatever, So,
Mhm.
So it's reputation,
reputation.
right? And we think that networking has to be face to face like this. Networking happens over the phone when we do the right thing, right? So, and this is where I made a mistake. I went and I had showed a property. We were running a few minutes late. I did call or text and notify that we were running a few minutes late, and would it still be okay, even though we were going to be within our window. And she said, "Great, just let me know when you're done." And I forgot to let her know when we were done. And she texted me a couple of, because we were running from that house to a party, and I completely forgot. And it was my own damn fault. But she texted me and she goes, "Is everything all right? Did everything go okay with the showing?" And I said, "I am so sorry. You asked me to reach out and I forgot. We ran on to the next property and I completely forgot. My bad. We're done." She goes, "It's okay, don't worry about it." She wasn't going to come home till later, but I just wanted to make sure. I said, "Thank you so much." Again, my apologies, but we were fine, but I took the hit, my mistake. I should have done it.
Is it courtesy to let sellers know that you're out?
It's a courtesy. When you leave and you shut the lockbox will notify the listing agent that you're done. You'll also get an email or a text that says, "Are you finished with your showing?" Sometimes even during your showing. And then the listing agent would like feedback.
Mhm.
So they'll know when you're done, so no, you don't have to call after every showing when you're done. But if they do ask you to notify them, it's in your best interest.
One other note that I've had happen on more than one occasion. A lot of times you'll get to a listing and you'll take your slot, and here in some cases there's 3 or 4 realtors waiting
Mhm.
to come and look right behind you,
Mhm.
and they'll say something like, "I'll lock up." I don't do that. I
Right.
lock up and I shut that lockbox because if something happens, guess who's the last person in?
Right.
So
Yeah, I agree.
I always, make them start the process over again. I lock it up and put the key back up and go that way. And one of my buyers asked me one time, "Why do you go to all that hassle? Why don't you just let them do it?" And I'm like, "Because I want them to know that we left,
Right.
and let them go and use their code and get
Mhm.
in." So
Yeah.
just
Or if they're even not even an agent, you wouldn't know if they're just
Yeah.
using your code,
yeah,
right?
who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows these days?
Mhm.
Crazy.
It's true.
So.
See, and these are all things. This is a great discussion because you have to have a process for your showing. It can't just be run in, run out. You have to have a process for what you're doing, not only so that you can gain more information from your customer or from the customer, but also everything that you do ripples out to so many different people. It ripples out to how your customer or how the customer feels about the experience with you. It ripples out to what they're going to say to someone else. It ripples out to the agent who has the listing. It ripples out to the seller, right? So if you're nasty during a showing or you're disrespectful to the property, then that's going to reflect. If all of a sudden the customer wants to make an offer, they're going to know on the other side exactly who you were and what you did.
Yes, yeah. And you do have odd situations where the seller won't leave. That's very uncomfortable, but it happens that a lot of times it's elderly.
Mhm.
or just for whatever reason they don't want to leave. And I'll tell you, I mean, not that I'm not always courteous, but I'm super courteous to them and very respectful of them. And I've had them tell me, well, you're the nicest realtor that's shown this house. Because I guess the others acted ugly because they really wanted them out.
Right.
But what are you gonna do? I mean, there's nothing you can do other than treat them nicely and respectful, and they'll remember it.
Right.
You know, they know. They know. But it happens.
Yeah. So, and in cases like that, when the seller's there, you always, and actually now with devices, you need to. This is the other reason a buyer consult's important, is you need to tell your customer how the showing's going to go. You know, I'll send you a group of listings that we're going to go see. We'll go to the properties. We're going to tour the properties. I'll give you a handout so that you can make notes on the properties. My recommendations to you is take your notes, keep your thoughts together. Don't outwardly talk about positives or cons of the property while you're at the property. We'll all take our notes, and then after we leave the property, we'll do a debrief. Why? This is a process of elimination versus a process of selection. So after we leave the house, we'll determine whether it sits in our top 3 or not. But I want you to have the time to really get through the house, think about the house, see the house, not be distracted, and then we'll talk about the house and kind of share what we think are pros and challenges with the house.
And not to make remarks while doing the showing.
Not to make remarks about the house while being at the house.
I can't get
This
used to
includes
that.
inside and outside.
But sometimes, you know, they're recording you. They say they aren't, and they're supposed to put that on the listing
Right.
agreement that they agree not to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But I guarantee you, there have been a few times when I've really wondered. There's been a few suspicious looking.
Yeah.
Because you know you can have a camera and
Right.
whatever anywhere.
Mhm.
So I've always told, you know, I try to tell them up front. Let's discuss later outside. You know, no discussion of the house inside. Whether it's good or bad, you know, a lot of times it can work both ways.
Yeah.
Oh, I want this house so bad. Oh, this is the one I really, really, really want it. Well, if they hear that
Mhm.
and you make an offer, you know,
Yeah.
they're going to come back and they're going to counter you with a
Right.
higher offer because they've seen
Mm-hmm.
that reaction. But you know, it's hard to get used to that because I don't know. Over the years, it just seems like you would sit and go in the kitchen and say, you know, this. They'll say this really should be updated completely, you know, or whatever, and discuss it like this for a while. But
Yeah.
that's part of the plan. See, that's why I needed this class to get my showings organized and
Well,
shut my mouth.
And let's talk about what happens after the showing. I mean, you'll have some steps that you want to take with your customer, the debrief, you know, pros, challenges, where does this rank, elimination type of questions. But here's the other thing. Remember, this is respect for the customer, respect, and the customer being the buyer and the seller, the property and the other agent, right? Part of the respect to the other agent comes in, did you provide feedback? When you have a listing, you're going to want feedback.
Yes.
And I can't tell you how hard it is to get feedback from other
I always
realtors.
give feedback. I'm a nerd. I'm a feedback nerd, and I give like details and stuff. I've had agents call me and say, "Wow, you just saved my life," and I do it with the idea that they might be sharing it with the seller.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I'm not that negative about the house,
Right.
but if there were weaknesses or things that I would suggest, I always put that on there because if they want to, they can share it with their seller
Mm-hmm.
and say, look, I keep getting the same feedback that purple room has got to be painted a neutral color. And if you hear it enough, even the seller's finally going to relent and probably paint the roof. Sometimes not.
Yeah.
And in this market, who cares? They're like, oh, purple. I can learn to live with it, or I'll paint it myself later. But
Yeah.
still, I try to give feedback every time.
Mm-hmm.
Because it helps everybody.
Yeah.
And again, the agents remember,
Mm-hmm.
oh, she's the one that gave me all that good feedback.
But I went for showing that with the buyer, actually, just for ourselves, for homes that we're interested in buying. And then I got requests in 2 different ways. Which one do you provide feedback in?
I usually use the showing time feedback, not the
Okay.
super feedback.
Right.
Oh, okay.
The super feedback is attached to the box.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
most people don't even know how to get into their Supra account.
Okay.
Yeah.
People being realtors.
Yes.
The showing time one is easy. It's connected to MLS.
Okay.
It can be shared with the seller. Should
And you can customize yours. Mine's custom.
Oh.
I ask all, you know.
Yeah.
I ask
You can
all kinds of
customize the
things.
questions.
Yeah, my questions are different. I even get comments, oh, your questions were hilarious. You know, or whatever. Or,
Yeah.
I enjoyed your feedback.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So, you know,
Which is
yes,
nice.
I ignore the first one. It's always Supra.
So, and I think the buyer consult is a great place to outline how the showings will occur, because I think a lot of buyers think we just run and open a door, and it's not always that way. You have to coordinate showings. I mean, sometimes time blocks aren't available. You have to be aware of how the showings are occurring. In this market, a lot of agents are allowing overlapping showings, which means I could be in the house and another agent come in with their customer and continue to show the house.
Mhm.
And there's nothing wrong with that if it was set up that way. I don't like
I
that.
don't either.
It's
Oh.
uncomfortable. But the other thing is you have to respect the realtor too. So if you know that it's back-to-back appointments, you need to be there on time and leave on time. Otherwise, you're disrespecting not only the other realtor, you're disrespecting their customer. So we had one where there was a house, and we were going to see the house for ourselves, and the appointments were literally back to back. And let's complicate that with the seller was there for every single showing.
Oh boy.
So we were 10 minutes early to the appointment. We stood outside and waited, right? There was a realtor inside. We stood outside and waited. At 5 minutes till, the realtor locked the front door.
Oh.
Locked the front door.
Oh.
And stayed in that house 10 minutes into our showing time.
Wow. Rude. Oh my gosh.
Now, they had the key. That's why the significance of unlocking the door was I couldn't get in.
No. Oh my goodness.
So we were 10 minutes late for our showing, right? When I was allowed to open the door, the seller was right there ready to talk, and I said, Mr. Seller, I can't thank you enough for being here and for your willingness to share your home with us. However, the realtor before us took 10 minutes into our appointment, and I will not do the same for the realtor behind us. So I apologize, but we are going to have to go through this house at lightning speed.
Mm-hmm.
And I apologize if we're not going to be able to hear all the wonderful things you've done to the home, but I will not infringe upon someone else's appointment time. He's like, oh, well, does it really matter? Can't you all be here at the same time? I said, no, I'm sorry. With the customer, I do not have overlapping showings, nor do I show a property at the same time as another agent.
Awkward.
I mean, anyway.
He was trying to create like an open house feel or something, but
Yeah, well, he just wanted everybody to be through his house.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, let me tell you everything about it. It's like, that's great. I appreciate you. Not so much, but anyway. And don't appreciate the realtor before.
Yeah. And you know, sometimes that can backfire on. I've had sellers tell things that I would call the realtor and tell them. That seller just told us, well, it only flooded twice, you know, or let me tell you the kicker. I had a couple that really wanted to buy this house in Pontevedra and loved it. And right next door to it was a pond. It was a retention pond, but it was, as always, in, you know, Sawgrass, it was very well maintained and landscaped. And I swear, I think they wanted to write an offer as soon as we got out of the showing. The couple stayed, they were old. And they said, I say old. Older than me, okay? So they, the guy said, now my people have little kids, okay? We've only seen 2 alligators in that pond. So you guys don't need to worry about the alligators. We've only seen 2 so far.
So far.
Guess what? Off the list.
yeah.
The debrief did not go too well.
Oh, lovely.
They had no interest at all when they heard alligator. with
Yeah.
little kids, 3 and 4-year-olds.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry, grab me a coffee. Jessica, you want a coffee?
No, I'm all right. Thank you.
Anyway, so and this is what you're going to see every day. So initially, you may not want to set the guidelines for your showings until you've shown a few properties with customers other than yourselves, and then start to get a feel for how you want to develop your showings. You may come up with the discussion of, look, we don't take people in our car unless A, B, and C. They're from out of town and don't have a rental car. They're only here for 15 minutes and or whatever, some short period of time frame. But whatever the reason, whatever the process is, make sure that you're clean, clear, and concise, consistent, and then figure out how you want your showings to go. And we'll talk about how to put showings together when we talk about doing a showing tour too.
Okay.
The other piece is to obtain the commitment, not only during the prospecting to qualify the person, but when you get in front of them and talk to them about how your showings are going to work. During those showings, it's a really good time to obtain a commitment. Make sure that you know that you're working together. This is the other reason we want to have a buyer consult. It's the perfect opportunity to get that commitment from the
How do
other
you do
party.
that?
It's talking about what you do, providing your value propositions, making sure they understand or that you understand, or they're working with more than one realtor. I had a coaching session with one of our other agents yesterday, and she said that there was a customer that told her that they had worked with another agent, but they didn't want to continue with that agent. She said, well, you really need to make sure that she understands that, and you need to fire her, for lack of a better term, in whatever way you think reasonable. And she said that 3 days ago she called them about a house that she had seen had a price reduction, and they said, oh, we already saw that. We saw that with the other realtor, and it had only been on the market about 6 days. So we agreed yesterday, one of her tasks is they either have to sign the buyer agency agreement, or she has to have proof that they have fired the other agent, or that they have let that other agent know that they're not interested in working with her anymore because she's now wasting her time. For example, that property that she talked to them about, if she were to write an offer on that property, that other agent could potentially have a dispute over commission, and it could have to go to arbitration.
Yeah.
Because the agent could say that she was procuring cause. Now there would be other things that the agent would have to prove, and the agent would have to prove non-abandonment, and the buyer would have to say, commit to the fact. But you don't want to get customers involved in that kind of discussion.
No.
So it's just a matter of holding people to the fire. So how do you do it? You ask for the commitment. You say. So especially after a buyer consult, and even just the one page that I'm going to ask you to either print out or use in your own format, at the end of that you say, so can you see the value I bring to you? Can I expect that you will commit to me as I will commit to you? Whether you see it on Zillow, Realtor.com, sellmeahome.xyz, through the airways, the pathways, the verbal ways, that I'm going to be the first person you talk to about a house.
And you almost have to do that, especially to first-time buyers who I used to work with probably more than anything else, because they truly don't get it. I mean, they would call me and tell me, Craig, we went to an open house today, and that realtor wanted to write an offer on the house. And your heart just sinks. And they said, but we told them, no, we have a realtor. And they asked for the name, and we told them your name. And I said, okay. So I kind of learned over the years, I usually give my buyers business cards. And really, if they're out riding around on Sunday afternoon, they want to go to an open house, the realtor is supposed to ask them, are you working with a realtor?
Right.
But I don't know.
But what's the other piece? What's the other piece?
Have you signed anything? That was another question that I used to ask people at an open house. They would say, yeah, I'm working with a realtor. And I would say, okay, have you signed any paperwork with the realtor? Meaning this buyer agency that I've never ever used. So yeah, that's why I'm here today.
And it could be beyond that. They could have had a previous offer that they wrote with that other agent.
Gosh,
So paperwork includes a bunch of different stuff.
Oh, well, I guess that's part of this process. Qualifying.
Yeah, and sometimes it is talking to those buyers about different situations. And that's what the buyer consult's all about.
Yes.
That's what the buyer consult presentation is about. Addressing objections. This is the other reason when you're getting that commitment from that customer. The other piece that you really want. Did I not? I am so sorry. I didn't hand these out.
Oh,
I am so sorry.
That's fine.
What a moron.
No.
Anyway,
I'm just drawing.
it's all right here.
I'm just drawing my own, but it's fine.
It's all right here. This is section 4 of your booklets.
Okay.
Do you have a binder still, or do you
I
need a
do,
binder?
of course.
Okay.
Yes, I do. I
Okay.
just don't. It's so thick and big now. I don't carry it when I come, but I'll
Yeah,
go and
no.
put
I mean, I just was going to give you one.
put
if you
all
didn't
my
have one.
stuff in it. I've got it.
So, as part of obtaining the commitment, it's also addressing the objections. So your buyer will be clear about what some of their objections are, but that you got to think about this from the right angle. When someone has an objection, they're working to eliminate something, right? So if they have an objection and they're trying to eliminate something, there's obviously an interest level. Complacency, or no, I don't have any questions. Complacency is probably the worst section we can get into. You want the customer to have questions. That means they're engaging with you. That means that they're listening to you. And those questions may be objectionable, but they're not always, they're usually just ways to try and figure out how this is going to work. So objections, or even just questions that they have, is a huge opportunity to demonstrate your knowledge, your expertise, your professionalism, and it's a way to know that they're engaged. And then you just have to determine at what level they're engaged, right? So it becomes a neat opportunity. And then you present and negotiate. So some of this stuff comes in the talking. The presenting and negotiation can be the presenting and negotiation or presenting of the buyer consult. The negotiation can be how we're going to work together, timing, and then also the presenting and negotiation goes into when we get into the offer phase to contract phase, what our responsibilities are and what our tasks are in that process. So this is kind of just an overview of the steps in the process. A lot of different things come under each of these categories, and each of these categories can be customized to your own personality, your own way of doing things. Is this the right order? I don't know. Let's talk about it. If it's not the right order for you, I at least want to make sure all the pieces are there so that we can kind of make sure that we keep you on track.
Now, when would you talk about the, in other words, the bottom line being them possibly paying your commission? When does that come up?
This is an overview of the process in our head.
Okay.
Let me get into the presentation.
Sure.
And I'll show you kind of where that would be. How about that?
All right.
So just to talk about a little bit about that first piece, which is that prospecting for that buyer or for those buyers. Your primary sources are your spheres of influence. Canvassing is another way of doing that. If you're not sure about different ways to prospect or different areas, sometimes it's hard, but if you start to think about it, I'll give you one for 10 more. But if you're coming up with a roadblock, sometimes like a writer's block, but a realtor block, these are just suggestions on different categories, groups, individuals that you may interact with that could be great opportunities for prospecting. Your car salesperson, think about this. Creating a relationship with your car salesperson or the person who sold you your car can be great. Whether you're driving a Hyundai, a Toyota, a Lexus, a Mercedes, think about all of the people that person is engaged with. Think about the opportunity to refer them business and them refer you business, right? The painter, decorator, the letter carrier. If you're part of an organization, a Lions Club, a Rotary Club, man, I can't tell you how much business comes from Rotary Club when you're a Rotary Club member. Church friends, service clubs, political groups, your hairstylist. Okay, think about it. Last time you were with your hairstylist, were they talking? I got my hair cut last night. The lady that cuts my hair talked the whole entire time.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
Engaged,
lots of
love her to
talking.
pieces, known her for years. But I want her talking about me to the other people who are sitting in the chair.
Yeah.
Right? What if I brought lunch? There's just 3 women, they own the business together. What if I brought lunch one day or spent half of a day there with a little table that talked about opportunities for buying, opportunities for selling? Everybody knows 17 realtors. That doesn't mean that then they say, oh, well, my husband's oh my gosh, who? That's fantastic. Oh, I haven't had an opportunity to have a cross sale with him yet. That's great. That's great. Maybe one day. Okay, well, you got all the information. If there's other information you need, maybe we'll get a networking opportunity or something. So there's lots of ways to do that. Can you set up connections with businesses? I wish you would. Find a business or organization that maybe is a 50 to 100 employee, 25 to 100 employee group. Go to the HR person. Go to the C-level person, the I don't know, COO, CEO, CFP, CPO3, what is it, C3PO? Anyway, go to that person and talk to them about, I'd really like to become the preferred realtor for your company, and I believe that I can provide these services, and here's what I'd be willing to do. I'd be willing to rebate $500 for properties under 300, and $1,000 for properties, 300 to 800 or whatever, or maybe for any of your employees that use me to buy or sell, I will provide the home warranty, or whatever you want. But think about doing something like that because it's a captive audience, right? And maybe 2 or 3 times a year you go in and you do a buyer seminar or a seller seminar. You bring one of our preferred customers and you have 2 people that show up and one person decides that year that they're going to buy, and they buy a $500,000 home. Was it worth your time?
Yeah.
I think so. Could they be talking to you about other people? Absolutely. What if they have a friend or family member who's a realtor? Well, offer to help them. Great. Who is it? Where are they? Let's get them in here and let's talk about it. Here's a package. Ask them about those pieces of information. And maybe you create a relationship with someone else from a networking standpoint.
This might help you some too, Jeff. A lot of people, we know a realtor, but they don't want the realtor knowing their business.
Right.
I have found that a lot. It's really, especially sometimes when it's families. I mean, that's when you least expect to get a prospect, but I try to make it clear as part of my first meeting, and it's probably wrong to do it, but whatever. I tell them, that I try not to get involved in the financing part of it. I have a very good lender that I would love to refer you to. I've got a couple of them, and because some people are very private, and you can tell. Once you've talked to them for a little while, you'll know they're very tight-lipped. But a lot of times it's really funny. They're like, "Yeah, my brother-in-law's a realtor." I'm like, "Okay, well, who is it? Maybe we've had a cross deal in the past." And I said, "Well, it doesn't matter because I don't really want him selling me a house because I don't want him knowing all my business." Like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah.
Surprise.
So they're funny, so
Different motivations.
yes. And they really
So-
don't want you knowing all their business.
These are some suggestions on areas or arenas that might help expand your prospecting when it comes to buyers.
Great news.
Your spheres or centers of influence are probably your primary, and of course any other canvassing or connections that you make are always very positive in your ability to be able to generate new business or expand your business base. So some of the goals for the consultation, just so before we get into it, some of the goals of the consultation are really to solidify your relationship. You want the person on the other side to know you're the professional and the realtor. So you want to solidify that relationship. It gets that commitment going also. You want to establish you as the real estate expert. So it's an opportunity to somewhat overwhelm them, but also an opportunity to help them feel comfortable with what you're doing and what you can do. You want to talk about reassuring the buyers, making them feel comfortable that this is not going to be as daunting and overwhelming as some think. However, in this market, you need to reassure your buyers that you can offer strategies to assist them in becoming more competitive in the market. And that's why, our offers are not boilerplate. Is it a boilerplate form? Yes. Does it have blanks? Absolutely. What are the blanks for? Customization. Why do we customize? Because everybody's situation is different. And if I have a buyer making an offer on different properties, or making an offer, losing the offer, making an offer, losing an offer, each situation is different. Right? Each house is different, each process is different. So reassuring the buyers that you understand the market and you understand how to be competitive, very important, how to be competitive in the market. You want to make sure you outline the process. I don't care if they've done this 14 times and they're telling you I've done this forever. One of the ways to ensure that you communicate your process is to say, great, that means we need to spend a little less time on certain discussions, but I still need to make sure I provide you with the same service I would provide anyone. So if you'll allow me the 15 minutes, that would be great. We can get through it fairly quickly. The buyer consult can take anywhere from 30 minutes to about 2 hours. It just depends on the interaction, the questions, the discussion, how deep you go, so and how you demonstrate your expertise and your prowess. Identify the wants versus the needs. This goes back to asking the why questions. Why? What does that mean to you? What does that work for you? How does that work for you? Why is this important to you? Introduce the financial as part of the process. Talk about the financial. Rhonda's point is very well taken. I'm not a lender. However, I have the right lenders. But before I know who to refer you to, or before we can get this process moving even further forward, I need to understand how far you've gotten. Have you spoken with a lender? Has a lender given you an idea of what you can afford? Do you have an idea of what you can afford? Where did that come from? So having those frank discussions, not how much do you make, how much did you get, how much you spending. If they're renting, you may want to say, whatever your current rental or lease payment is that the payment you would like to stay in? Or are you willing to go above or below that? That'll give you some kind of idea of what you're looking at, and then you have to translate that to a sales price. Right? Really have to understand the motivation. Why in this crazy ass market is now the right time for you to be buying? Are you sure you have the stamina for this? This is not going to be fun all the time. Really, please talk about the importance of representation. The buyer agency agreement gives you that launching pad, but discussing the other types, or discussing the different types of properties that are available, or where they're going to find properties available, gives you that chance to talk about why it's important to have representation. So Rhonda mentioned an open house. Can you think of any other type of property where a buyer wants to ensure that they have representation?
New construction.
Absolutely. New construction.
I do have questions about that when we have time, about our role with new construction.
Great. It'll be one of the things that comes up in this, and we'll definitely touch on it.
Okay.
Or we'll delve into it, hopefully to get those questions answered. Access to inventory. Here's the other thing you have to get the customer comfortable with, and why I'm such a big proponent of HomeSnap. The customer wants to know that you have access to the inventory. And the last thing you want is a customer bringing, well, not the last thing. It's fine if they bring you a property. You better have a reason why you didn't get that property to them first. Right? Like when our agent showed that customer who was working with another agent that property, the reason she brought it up to them is because it had a price reduction. So she had a reason to call them about the property, right? But they'd already seen it. She had no idea, right? And she wouldn't have had any idea. So let's talk about this. So right here is where the buyer consultation presentation actually begins. This is the first slide of the buyer consultation of the presentation. So when you're starting this is, you know, with this first slide, it's a good time just to talk about the time that we're going to spend based on the time that they've allotted. Now, if you tell someone it's going to be anywhere from 30 minutes to 2 hours, that's probably not the best thing to do. It's probably best to say we're going to probably be together 30 to 45 minutes, and what you need to do is allot 2 hours. So if you go over, you're asking for, hey, we seem to have gone over that 30 minutes. I want to be respectful of your time. Do you still have time to continue the conversation, or do we need to book another appointment? But it gives you a chance to show that that you're respectful and also that you're engaged with of the timing. This is the slide that I ask people, please, if nothing else, please just print this one out, because this will take you through all the different pieces you need to talk about. So if I just print this out and set this in front of my customer and say, I need to talk to you about these things, immediately, once I've gotten my flow down, I can take them through this and cover everything. Establishing the lender relationship, you need to talk about have they, will they, how are they buying, all of those different pieces. Who are they talking to? I had an agent that we spoke with just yesterday who was upset because he submitted an offer on a property, and the listing agent, of course, he submitted an offer with the pre-qualification, and the listing agent, when they got the pre-qualification letter and the offer, reached out to the loan officer to confirm that the buyer had already moved along in the process. But here's the other reason that the listing associate did that. It was Rocket Mortgage.
Oh boy, I was afraid you were going to say that.
Now, Rhonda's eyes got about this big when I said the listing associate contacted the loan officer. Please remember, an executed offer signed by the buyer gives the listing associate the right to contact the lender.
Yes.
The associate did nothing wrong. The listing associate did nothing wrong. Our associate felt that he had. I said, I'm sorry, I wish I could say that he had, but he didn't. He was looking out for the seller and the transaction. Many lenders don't know, and it happened to be a condo, so many lenders don't know to look to see if a condo is approved for financing. Mm-hmm. It could be FHA, VA, or conventional, doesn't matter. So the listing associate did the right thing. Could he have done it better? Yes. He could have contacted our associate and said, look, I want to reach out to the loan officer. Are you good with that? Or have you asked the loan officer if this property is qualified in order to go ahead and take, to get financing with them? So he didn't do anything wrong. There could have been a better way for him to do it. But what you need to establish at the onset is, and our agent could have also done a better job. With the lender, knowing the lender, our agent should have said, we're making offers on condos, your pre-qualification says single family house, can we get that changed? We're looking at condos, this property is or is not approved for this type of financing, could we use a different type of financing? So our agent could have done a little better, mm-hmm. right? But the listing associate on the other side didn't do anything wrong. But as it relates to the buyer, you need as much information about where the buyer is in the lending process so that you can refine your process so that they have a good experience. We need to talk about accessing all the inventory. resales, new construction, distressed properties, for sale by owners, what happens at open houses. We need to talk about all that. Narrowing the field. This is a process of elimination, not a process of selection. Selecting the best home. What is the best home for you? Making the offer, helping them understand all of the different pieces of the offer and what you do to ensure their safety in the offer versus contract versus closing. Managing the transaction. Y'all, there are roughly 68 to 72 steps that occur from contract to closing, and that's just on average. You can get up to 125 steps from contract to closing, and you're responsible for each and every one of those steps. So how do you manage that? How do you help them understand that?
Are you at
And
it
then we are at it again.
every day this week? She's
Every
made
day
you
this
work.
week. She's made me work every day this week.
What y'all doing today?
Buyer consults.
Oh, okay, good one.
Yeah. Good to see you.
Y'all got a good weekend plan? Don't you look sassy in the shirt?
Oh,
His jeans today. It's kind of spunky,
I
doesn't
fit
it?
as Mr. Casual.
And look at his hair. He's got his hair spiked a little bit.
I know. It's because I got a cut. I don't know what to do with it. No.
Well, sometimes when your hair's dirty, you can make it look really good.
This time it's clean. Attending the closing, important. We want to make sure that there is someone from our company at every single closing. If you can't make a closing, let us know. See if we can get someone to step in for you, okay? Picking up the keys, you want to talk about the excitement. But this covers all of the pieces you should be talking about. But let's talk about what the detail is. So, for the buyer consult, the other thing we recommend is having something to give to your buyer that they can work with. So this is a folder. It's branded with the Legends of Real Estate. They are $1 each. They come in packages of 10. If you'd like to buy them, you can. If you would like to have your own personal brochures made with your branding on it and our branding on the back, that's fine too. Please remember, anything you hand out has to acknowledge you as a realtor and us as the brokerage. So just watch that. But this is the kind of thing that we feel is a strong positioning when you are with a buyer. Not only is it saying, I'm giving you something, but there are pieces in it you created. So here's one for you. Here's one for
Thank you.
Rhonda.
Beautiful.
And let's talk about putting them together. So somewhere along the way, usually right about here or just before this when we sit down, I usually recommend using a buyer consult or counseling worksheet. If you do the buyer consult or you do this buyer consult in 1 or 2 steps, whatever you think are appropriate, this is a great piece. This is a good piece. Can it be improved? Absolutely, which means when you see things on here or you think of things that should be added to this, you need to let me know so that we can update it. You'll pass that to Rhonda, please. But this is a really great place or opportunity. Not necessarily all the questions on here, but using the tool. This is a really good opportunity to really delve into some questions, talk, open up the communication. So this is something that either you can send to them ahead of time if you would like, or I really like this to be able to talk. Hey, Miss Kathy.
Hi.
How are you?
Doing great. Nice seeing you.
Nice to see you too. This is a good tool, and again, it can be customized to you. You can put your logo on it. We can send it to you, whatever you want, so that all your materials look consistent. That's great, right? But it's getting some basic information. More so asking how they want to be contacted. It's talking about the people who are going to be in the house. Is it just you? And then, expanding it to your pets, right? Pets are family members.
Sure.
And then asking them to describe their new home a little bit. This is more than just 3 bedrooms, 2 bath. You want to hear them tell a story about how they see themselves in their new home. It's really what you're looking for. You want to identify at least maybe 2, 3, or up to about 5 features that they want and 5 features that they don't want. These are opportunities to ask the why questions. Why don't you want a bar in your house? We don't drink, we don't want to borrow. It's not something we look forward to. Blah blah blah. Okay, great, no problem. If we found a house with a bar that could be converted to something else, would you be open to that? Okay, maybe. So really, what's the want? What's the need? And where do we have some flexibility? It's your chance to really fill that out. What areas of town are you interested in? When they get really refined on the areas of town, that's where we might have some trouble. Being able to find what they want in the smaller quadrant. And then what their purchasing plan is. So sometimes I'll start this usually just as an intro. Sometimes I'll fill out pieces and fill out more later. You're going to find whatever works best for you.
This is wonderful.
Kinds of things.
It keeps you on task, I tend to kind of wander off, so this would be
Kind of resemble that too.
I'm
So,
telling them myself.
for your packets, this may be on one side. This maybe this is on your left side, maybe at the front, so that you just pull it out for you and then leave the rest for them. The other thing that's important to be able to do is to help the customer and yourself understand what the time frame is, right? And sometimes people are very visual. So if you'll pass one down, please. So I would recommend in your packet, please have some sort of a calendar. And maybe one of the first questions you want to ask is, when do you want to be into your new house? Okay? So maybe what you do is you circle when they want to be in their new house. And then you know that on average, in a traditional market, it takes 8 to 10 weeks. 8 to 10 weeks to find the right house, plus 30 days to close. So we got to back up and see where we are in relationship to what their expectation is. And here's the reason we ask you to do something like this, is if they want to be in November, if we're looking now, whatever we find is not going to be available when we look at the time frame out for that, right? For a November closing. If they want to be in July, okay, our next week is entirely booked with them. Mm-hmm. So we gotta kind of see where things are to make things reasonable. But what this is doing is setting an expectation or realigning the customer's expectation. Don't we just go out and see a house and make an offer, we buy, and I'm in a week? That's what they do on HGTV.
Oh,
that's what they do on Selling LA. That's what they do on $1 Million Listing.
Oh, boy.
They talk about it and they're in the next week, right? No, it doesn't work that way. We have to have the time to get everybody in line. Even cash still requires time. You want clean title on your house when you buy it, don't you? So it takes a little time. So can we do it quicker? Can we do it slower? And this is why making sure that the lender is involved with you, I mean in a good way, not kinky, but anyway, make sure the lender's involved with you, because they're the one who's going to be able to tell you, we can do it in 20 days. Ain't going to happen for 45 to 60 days based on what we're working with here. They'll tell you. That's why the lender relationship is so important. So I'll usually keep the buyer consult and the calendar one behind the other, because I try to keep myself organized so that I can have an order to my discussion. And then I'll break into the discussion, or I'll further push into the presentation. The first slide talks about financing. Oops, sorry. So I'm going to want to talk about and ask the questions. Talk to me about your lending experience. What banks are you currently working with? Do you think you're going to go to maybe one of those banks to get your loan? Oh, you're using cash. Fantastic. Here's what I'm going to let you know about our current market. Most sellers are going to want to see that either you have the cash available, or they're going to want a pre-qualification or pre-approval letter from your lender. So let's talk about all those different pieces. Cash, is that viable for you? No. Okay, let's move that one aside. How about lending? Have you spoken with a lender yet? Do you have lenders you like to use? Have you been through this process recently? Who did your lending on your last home if they're a homeowner? So all of those questions can help me understand a little bit about how comfortable they are with the process. And then I might introduce my preferred lenders. Great, so what I'd like to do is offer this as an opportunity for you. You'd like to go to your lender, Chase, fantastic. See what kind of rates they can offer you, see what kind of options they can offer you. If you're open to it, I would be happy to take your good faith estimate and share it with one of my preferred lenders to see if they have any ideas on ways to improve, on programs that they may offer that Chase may not. And if not, at least you've had a second set of eyes, look at, from an expert, look at what's being offered to you. But we really trust our guy. Then you know what? That's what we want. If you really trust them, I have no questions, other than I would appreciate an introduction, right? So talking about the financing becomes important. It gives you a lot of information to figure out what the timelines are going to be like, who you need to work with. And after the discussion yesterday about Rocket Mortgage with the agent said, you know, I'm going to talk to the buyer about other opportunities, or at least the opportunity to have one of our preferred lenders review the good faith estimate that they've been given. I thought, oh yay. I haven't, and this is my personal experience, I have not experienced a Rocket Mortgage, Lending Tree, or any online lender closing that was not delayed, and some up to 45 and 60 days.
Mm-hmm.
It's huge. In this market where people are trying to lock in rates, makes a huge difference. I'll talk to them about what we want to make sure they have available. All of these items are customarily in small boxes located under a bed at the back of a closet somewhere. But if we can get them out and we can get them early, we can move from pre-qualification to pre-approval very fast. So this gives me the opportunity to talk about the difference between pre-qualification and pre-approval, right? Gives me the opportunity to talk about strategies. When a customer, a seller, wants proof that you're going to be able to make this happen, being able to give them a pre-approval letter puts you in a much stronger position than a pre-qualification letter. I'm going to want to just have a discussion, identify monthly parameters, determine down payment, very important, you know, are you available for military, you know, VA, type of financing. So this opens me up to all those discussions. Remember, this is the first bullet point on that one summary slide, the process. Why did that slide come first? Because buyers tell us we're concerned, we need someone who will help us with the process and the paperwork. So let's put it on the table first, since that's what they tell us, right? That's why that overview is there. And these are the details that you want to associate with each of those bullet points. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Kind of how it's laid out? Next, what we want to talk about is accessing the inventory. So we really want to bring up all of the options ourselves, under the auspices of the importance of having representation. Resale. Who's the listing agent working for? Even in transaction brokerage, right? They're the ones who listed it. They're going to be having the conversations with the seller. Even in transaction brokerage relationships where they're supposed to be working towards the benefit of the transaction, they still have that primary connection with the seller. Hey sir, how can I help you? Oh, you're going to be in there. 1 second, let me get Kathy for you. I think, okay, thank you. Builders, what's the challenge with the builders? Who does the site salesperson represent?
The builder.
The builder. Yeah, they can't write offers. And here's the other thing about. So let's talk about builders for a minute. You're so active here today. It's wonderful.
Exciting.
How you doing?
Kathy, don't forget we've got stuff down in the fridge if someone would like a water or something. Oh, yeah. Just give me a pinch. We're gonna go.
Are you Kathy?
Nice to see you. I am Virginia. Nice to see you too.
So let's talk about builders then. what are some of your questions about builders?
Well, I see that a buyer could go without being represented by a realtor and make an offer. So, what are the benefits? How can we persuade potential buyers to still choose to go with us?
This is it. Buyers can go directly to a builder, and here's the thing about that. We have to be the ones to bring it up first. That's why we think that the buyer consult is so important. We have to be the ones at the onset to say, look, I have access to all the inventory. There's a resource in MLS called New Home Source Pro. I think it's fantastic. It's an New Home Source Pro. It's an application in MLS.
You can personalize it and everything. Give your impressive buyers if they're interested in the construction. It looks like you're the guru, doesn't it?
It does. The other thing about it is, even if your buyer says they're not interested in new construction, you still want to talk to them about new construction. And I'm going to say that if your buyer is looking for a property and there's new construction within 25 miles of that property, you need to be the one to take them there.
Yeah.
Because the site salesperson is not going to ask the person coming through the door, are you working with the realtor? What they're going to say is, hi, so nice to see you. Go ahead and register. And on the back side of that registration form at the very bottom in 6-point print is going to be, are you working with a realtor? Yes, no, who? So that's exaggerating,
If it's in
obviously.
there at all.
However, it's not their job to find out if that person is working with a realtor. And I will tell you, new construction will probably be one of your easiest sales around because there's nothing you do. This is why it's also the easiest place to become irrelevant.
Right.
So with builders, I think, we can have a good relationship with builders, but it's your responsibility to make that happen. It's very easy to lose buyers to new construction because buyers go, no, I don't want new construction. I don't want to wait that long. I heard it's really they don't negotiate on price. I don't want. And then a long weekend like this, they are out there, and they're, oh, honey, let's get some decorating ideas for our new home. And they go to new construction and they walk through, and the site salesperson does their job. Hi, I'm here to help you. Would you like to take a walk through our models and see? And they take, and 45 minutes later, they come back and the site says, so what can I? Well, we like that middle one. Is it available here? Well, we have 1 in inventory and 2 coming out of the ground. What's your time frame? And you've lost them. You've lost them. So we have to train our buyers that representation is very important, because the person on the other side is not representing them, and I'm there for you. The way that we can help bring value to a builder is, 1, oftentimes, not as much right now, but oftentimes, builders offer special incentives through the realtor. In other words, they may offer a refrigerator, a washer, and a dryer as an incentive for the realtor to talk to their customer about bringing them to that builder. But the buyer going in on their own, the site salesperson is not going to offer them the washer, the dryer, and the refrigerator. So there are often times that we have a better understanding of where they are. The other piece of it is, after you've gone through a couple of builder sales, or even through a couple of models from different builders, you'll know who the strong builders are and who the challenging builders are. Something like Pulte is basically here it is. If that's what you want, great. Customization, very minimal, right?
Low commission too.
Oh, yeah, in this market, they've also been cutting their commission a lot. Something like ICI, larger homes, more flexibility in finishes, not necessarily in changing layout or floor plan. Pineapple Corporation, 100% customization. Right? Arthur Ruttenberg, high quality, low production, high price. So you'll see right away as you start going through some of these builders, and we encourage you to do that. You should know the builders in our market. Here's the other thing about going out. If I'm going out to a builder and I'm Clark, I'm with Legends of Real Estate. I've come to just learn a little bit more about your development, your process, where you are, what phase you're in. Check out your models. I'd like to take back a folder with your with not only your information, but that introduction is a networking introduction. So then you go through and you just ask them some questions. So how's it going? How many sales this week? You know, blah, 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 blah. Remember, the site salesperson can't list homes. So if someone comes in and they have to sell a home to buy a home, if you make nice, you never know. They may refer someone to you to list their home so that they can get that home. You never know. So I think it's a benefit to get out to talk to the builders, to learn price points, amenities, features, so that you can say, hey, Mr. and Ms. Buyer, I know you've said builders are not, or new construction is not your thing, and I understand that completely. I'm going to recommend, even though it's not, I'm going to recommend you go by the Arthur Ruttenberg community down here on Corona, and I'm going to recommend that you go over and see Tamaya, where ICI builds, because I'd like you to get a feel for what new construction can provide, so that we can begin to eliminate and or find features that are important to you. I have Thursday available, and I would love to go see an update on Arthur Ruttenberg's development. Could we go a couple hours on Thursday? You usually want to be the person that takes them there, because most builders will not honor the relationship unless you have brought your customer there, especially in this market. I know what Rhonda said is true. Give your buyer business cards so that they can give to realtors at open houses.
Yeah, I was gonna say, not so much at builders.
But builders, unless you're there, and let's be real. Why should they honor the relationship if you don't even introduce them? Right?
Right.
I mean, you're basically going to get paid for going, hi, they want to buy, you want to sell, yay!
Yeah.
You know, you get paid for introducing them. It's one of your easiest sales. But again, it's also the easiest sale to become irrelevant. So you have to have a plan for your customers that do new construction or that are interested in new construction. You need to, one, know the products. You need to, two, know the inventory. You need to also be present. So, and be present not just at the offer phase. So here's the deal. If Rhonda is the site salesperson and I bring you to that site and we discuss and you find a property that you want and you're ready to make an offer with a specific lot, when Rhonda puts that package together, that is not a contract. There is no commitment at that point from the builder to you, the buyer, or to me, the realtor. That commitment doesn't solidify until Rhonda sends that offer over to the corporate office, and the corporate office acknowledges it and accepts it. You got something? Oh, okay. Acknowledges and accepts it. You're not under contract. And we're finding that a lot right now with builders who have got inventory available. They're doing bids.
Yeah.
Or we've had a buyer make an offer on a property, and then the builder knows that they have a price increase coming, refuses to sign it unless the buyer agrees to the price increase. So, and your buyer goes, but wait a minute, I was just with Rhonda. She signed all the paperwork, I signed all the paperwork she gave me. How can you increase the price now? Well, Rhonda's not the one that acknowledges it as a contract. Rhonda puts the paperwork together and sends it to corporate that acknowledges it as a contract. You don't have a contract until they sign it and send it back.
Are
So,
you hearing that some builders aren't giving you the contract, that they don't want you to read the contract? Because I had that happen to somebody down in Nocatee, not me, just another realtor, that they said, no, you know, we don't print out the contract or anything. Your buyer just needs to sign here, and he sign here and you sign there. Just saying.
Huh. I'm not aware
Maybe
of that.
that was an odd
Yeah.
situation.
I need 1 second because we've got a closing is supposed to be happening, and I just got 2 calls.
Uh-oh. Yikes. No calls on closing day.
Yeah.
I know. I
It's a
know.
rule.
Ain't that the truth? So I'm sorry. I apologize. Let me just make sure that everything's okay, because she's supposed to close at 10, I think, or sign at 10.
I was going to show
So you
you
can see.
the new
Oh,
home
yeah.
construction
Oh, nice.
that they get. And
Hey,
they
it's
go
Clark.
to buy that. And then you just
Hey, did you call?
personalize it with your stuff.
Okay.
And they can search for
No,
homes
I'm sorry,
there,
I'm
and it
teaching a
gets-
class and
it
just
gets
took a break.
sent to you, like,
No, 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 no.
What? This is the.
And this is, let me tell you how I got here. I'll go backwards.
It's okay.